And this week on SI's Train of Thoughts podcast, Jimmy Traina had James Andrew Miller on. And if you're not familiar with James Andrew Miller, he has written some of these excellent oral history books on Saturday Night Live, CAA, ESPN, and is pretty much a one of the best media reporters out there. A lot of work with the Hollywood Reporter, very tuned in to all the key players in television. So he was discussing Warner Brothers Discovery and their potential interest in WWE. So we're going to play that clip with Jimmy Traina and James Andrew Miller.
Are there other companies, though, who would want to get in business with the WWE besides NBC and Fox? Do we know of?
I think so. And I wouldn't be surprised, despite the fact that money is such an issue for them. I wouldn't be surprised if Warner Brothers Discovery wouldn't like a slice of that WWE pie.
Now,
remember, Monday night does not have to be on Monday night. Monday night's a tough night because if you go through the calendar all year round, there's sports on Monday night. And you could, if you're Warner Brothers Discovery, you could say, we're going to move it to a different night. We got Thursday night with the NBA or whatever, but we're going to figure out a different night for it. And all of a sudden it becomes, very attractive.
Now here's the thing about Warner Brothers, though. So they're in bed with the WWE competition, AEW. AEW Wrestling has shows on Turner on Wednesday nights and Friday nights. So when you say Warner Brothers could be involved, do you know, I'm sure you're speculating, but would it be in addition to or instead of, or you don't know that?
I don't know, but I know that there are people at Warner Brothers who are interested
in the WWE.
Yeah.
So there is James Andrew Miller, and flat out stating that he is aware of interest that WBD has in WWE, which becomes very interesting. And that was brought up when we talked with Brandon Ross. It's something that has been at least floated out there, but this would be the most significant analyst that is flat out stating there is that interest. Now, legally, it is still the exclusive negotiating window with the incumbents. So it is not as though they can have formal talks yet, but it does bring up many questions that if Warner Brothers Discovery is interested in WWE, there is no way WWE is entertaining this without, this is a double whammy. It is something where we could get potentially a great deal with Warner Brothers Discovery that might be looking at a reduced NBA schedule or an outright loss of the NBA. And WWE comes in at a fraction of that, which can still be very sizable. And they can carve out an exclusivity on Warner Brothers because there is no way WWE is going to Warner Brothers when they are going to be shoulder programming with AEW as the wrestling on the network. So this one becomes a very interesting tactical move. If you're WWE, you are certainly, to me, taking this meeting, which to me would be, it kind of puts a lot of pressure on the incumbents to make such an incredible deal. Because if I'm WWE, I want to get to the exploratory phase of this because there is a lot of value in WWE in creating havoc for AEW to go find a potential new home outside of Warner Brothers Discovery. If Warner Brothers Discovery, in fact, wants the WWE, whether that's SmackDown, whether that is, Raw, maybe less so, but SmackDown seems to be the show that you could see it on a new home.
Sure. Yeah. All of this just feels like negotiation to me.
That's what it is. These are all
everybody involved, whether you're the WWE, whether you're Warner Brothers Discovery. I mean, sure, you might have a bit of loyalty to AEW, but if AEW and Tony Khan wants a much higher price tag, well, for that much more, maybe you can get WWE. You can get, the top dog that, has years of sort of success attached to its brand name. So, of course, you would at least explore the option.
It's also now a significant deal with Endeavor, and when the UFC rights come up, Warner Brothers Discovery, they went to bat for Dana White to get that slap fight on when probably many broadcasters would have dropped it, and it certainly does. You now have an established relationship with part of this TKO group, and when UFC comes around, I am sure Warner Brothers would be interested in that, providing their financial woes that they are in. But if you're scaling back on the NBA, this is the kind of you need to program, and this could be content that you might be desiring that is more affordable than what they can afford for an NBA renewal.
Absolutely. And if I'm AEW and Tony Khan, I don't know if I'm that concerned about something like this. I think at some point you're probably going to want to explore your other options outside of Warner Brothers Discovery. And let's say Warner Brothers does, take on a WWE show. Well, then that leaves the door wide open at a Fox or maybe at a USA Network that, has seen a proven ratings draw in professional wrestling. And at this point, AEW is already established enough to have this track record of saying, hey, we could do just as well in some cases as the WWE. Take us for a fraction of the price. I don't think they should worry at all.
Again, and this is like, how much interest is there? Like, that's a very vague term of how significant they are. And the actions of Warner Brothers Discovery towards AEW, I mean, they are just adding and adding. And that to me is a giant sign of confidence that they have in AEW. And you can interpret that how you will, that they look at, okay, there's an audience for professional wrestling. We know what the number one brand is. Are they, they would be foolish not to explore, but it does open a lot of questions. Now, I don't think that James Andrew Miller is being so adamant about that idea of moving Raw to another Monday night unless he has heard that scenario thrown out. And if you're looking at a Raw potentially leaving NBC Universal, which that to me seems like the tougher one to imagine. I think NBC Universal is going to make a very, very strong play to keep it as is. But the idea of moving, I think SmackDown, very fluid, that could move. Could you see Raw just being transplanted to another night of the week and that audience finding it? Like, do you think they are at all married to Monday nights?
I don't see why they would be, John. For the right price, I think they can move it to Saturdays at 6:05 Eastern, for the right price, but it's not going to, because it's going to cost way too much to not be put into prime time. I mean, I think there's something to be said. Like, if you are a network purchasing Raw, you have the audience that has been conditioned for 30 years now to tune in at this particular time slot, and to change those habits, you might be shaving off a good section of the audience. So it might be detrimental to the network. But if a network also thinks that, hey, like Tuesdays at this time, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, we really need this audience to win this night for us, yeah, I could see them moving it again for the right price. It seems like what's the reason for the WWE to not want to entertain that idea?
I wouldn't be. I think it would be greatly overblown, the idea of moving to another night. Would there be an adjustment period? Of course, but you know how hard they're going to push a new night and loading up to train people to a new night. I mean, SmackDown moved when it went to Fox to Fridays. That was a big move. Now, Monday is more established. It is wrestling night and has been for most people's lives. But you're right. If you're talking about, and again, I think I would be very surprised to see Raw leave NBC Universal. But in this theoretical, if you're talking about a new home for Raw being on a different night of the week, depending on where they go and syndication packages, the idea of Raw moving back to 2 hours, then that does become a possibility as well. If you have, like, if it was to go on a network, that would certainly be an issue. That was the whole deal when Fox wanted Raw, that could have become a possibility. And if you're looking at you have a strong syndication package that you're paying for your Seinfeld and Big Bang Theory replays, there's so many different ways that this could go. You could see the idea of a network getting it and putting a third hour on their streaming platform and trying to send people there. There's all these different balls in the air that are potential, but the idea of NBC Universal not making as strong a pitch as possible, I mean, that one would surprise me. SmackDown is a lot more interesting of this chip that you can play and gets into the mix where you could get a lot of interesting offers for SmackDown, and who knows where that one could end up. And
how does the Peacock deal play into it all as well?
Well, there's still another year on the Peacock deal, a little over a year after the television.
Will they aim to negotiate early and go coterminous?
Coterminous is, well, basically the UFC deal and the Peacock deal are basically coterminous, and Nick Khan has stated as much. Like, that's a really interesting factor, that those deals are up coterminous.
Our favorite word.
I think that might be the new name of me and Brandon's interview show.
Love it.
Okay, co-terminus. Pollock and Thurston co-terminus.